What's up, guys? Dwayne back here again. We are in my little makeshift studio, and behind me I have something very special. So this is a special little video for you guys. Sitting on the table here behind me is, hopefully you can see, are a bunch of championship belts. And these championship belts are championship belts that we had used in SMIW over its 14-year history. So some of these championship belts, if you watched the show, you'd be familiar with, as we had used them in 2017 and 2018. However, some of them, actually most of them, go all the way back to 2006. So a lot of these you may have never seen. So we're going to go over the championship belts and the history of the championship belts and how they evolved as we did with SMIW. First up, we have a set of tag team championship belts, and as you can probably see, these are very cheap. These are ones that you could buy at the store, the little kids replica foam and plastic belts. But when we originally started out, we had no money. This is kind of what we had to do. And so what I would do is I would make up custom little emblems and things and kind of just paste over them. These are very, I guess, lazy versions. There are some that have a lot more intricate design and things that we had made, or I had made, for SMIW over the years. But the tag team championships, they weren't around very long. We very rarely had enough people in order to justify basically a tag team division. So these were only used maybe twice, and they weren't around very long either time. Tag team division was never something that we really could, keep going. One of these championship belts, and I believe it was this one in particular, we originally bought and used to create a custom version of the hardcore championship that Rampage would use there for a short time, which was also a very, very terrible design. It was very lazy, but that's what it was. But anyways, yeah, the tag team championships, and again, I know they're just toys. That's just what we could afford at the time. Obviously, being that this is the evolution of the championship belts, they'd get better over time. But these are the tag team championship belts that that we had used for a very short time in 2006, and it made a small appearance in I think only one episode in 2007. Next up, we have this, and this is the ill-fated Deathmatch Championship. And this made its debut in 2006, and this is one of the most terrible designs I think we might have ever come up with. And I say we, but it was all me. At the time, I wanted something that was more hardcore than the Hardcore Championship, so birth to the Deathmatch Championship. Same premise. This is one of the things I was talking about with the tag titles, where a little bit more full design instead of just a couple little things. The tag titles was a very lazy, do-over, but this one was a complete own design, and yes, it's absolutely terrible, and I already know that. It didn't stick around very long, 2 months, 3 months, maybe, and the only thing about the design that I actually even thought was kind of interesting is the studs and the spikes that got stuck in it. This particular belt, minus all of the things that are covering it, was what I had originally used to create the SMIW Championship, the original, the SBWF Championship at the time. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it. I don't have anything. That's something that unfortunately didn't survive. But as we would upgrade our World Championship later on, this would then be revamped as the Deathmatch Championship. And only 2 characters ever held it, Pain and Trismagia, who later threw it right in the garbage where it rightfully belonged. But again, 2006 is when it came around, and surprisingly, I still have it in my possession some 13 years later. So still kind of special to me either way. speaking of hardcore championships, that is the one that is up next. Once again, a foam plastic championship belt. This was one of the, I believe, the original toy Smoking Skull championship belts that you could buy back in, it was 98, 99, somewhere in there. Just took a hammer to it, beat it up a bit, stuck some electrical tape over it, you know, painted our initials and stuff on there, whatnot. And again, 2006 is when this made its debut. I think it was like March of 2006, somewhere in there. This one actually had a little bit more, I guess we can say, TV time. This one was on tape more than the other ones that I have just mentioned, as this one lasted all the way up until it was September or October, somewhere in that ballpark of 2006. So several months the Hardcore Championship was around. And once again, in 2006 we had made this, and still some 13 years later, you know, all the tape, all the everything is still exactly where it was. This is exactly how it looked when we used it on SBWF tapes, and so to see that it has still survived in this original form is kind of miraculous to me. And again, it is what it is. It's cheap. It doesn't look pretty. We thought it was cool at the time because, again, we had no money. We had to do with what we had. We had to make the best of it. And so this was the Hardcore Championship. And, you know, there it is. There you go. Next up, we have another Smoking Skull Championship belt, and this one is still completely intact. No hammers to this one. Does have a couple rips and tears in the foam and stuff, but this one here, on the forehead, we could actually remove this tape and, you know, it'd be pretty much original. But this is the FOE World Heavyweight Championship belt, and this is also 2006 when this came up. And this was during the FOE storyline, where Fear decided he was going to leave the promotion, and he took half of the other talent with him, and he created a rival promotion. Again, if we would have had some money, you know, would have been nice to have gotten him an actual World Heavyweight Championship belt. We were rocking one at the time for SBWF, so it would have been nice to actually have an actual, you know, nice belt for him. But we did not have that luxury, and so we brought back one of these, you know, to use for the FOE World Heavyweight Championship. Just like the Deathmatch Championship, this particular belt, this little toy, was what I had used to make the second rendition of the SBWF World Heavyweight Championship. Similar concept where I made my complete own design, plastered over the top of it, and used that for a time until we finally upgraded to an actual belt, or at least a replica of one, to use for our World Heavyweight title. But here it is. This belt made its final appearance. I believe it may have been 2008. I don't recall 100%. It may have been late 2007. But this championship belt was originally in 2006. It was brought back and was unified with the SBWF World title. And so this one's seen a little bit of time too. And once again, here it is, 13 years later, and still within my possession. And finally, we have the final foam plastic, really cheapy belt that we had used, and this is the SBWF United States Championship. This is actually the second rendition of the United States Championship belt. The first version of it that I had created was, again, just like this, a lot simpler design, but again, I don't even have a picture of it. I have nothing. There's no way that I can show you what it originally looked like. But again, since it is just paper, it got rained on or something at one point. We got caught in some rain or something, and it completely ruined it. So I made the second design, which is this one. And this particular version first came onto the scene very early in 2006, and we had used it for a couple months before we finally upgraded to a different United States Championship belt. And the United States Championship would become a mainstay in SBWF, XWF, and SMIW throughout the remainder of its history. But this is pretty much, with the exception of the first version that only lasted maybe a couple weeks before this one came in, this is where the United States Championship for SMIW all started. Now we get into the actual belts. This one, obviously, you can see is awfully small, and the reason for that being is that this is a what they considered a kid size United States Championship belt. It currently has the XWF name and little acronym on the front here. This version was introduced in mid-2006 in SBWF, and we used it all the way through then, through 2007, and we brought it back in 2008 for that one show, and then once again in XWF, where it was rebranded in 2010. And the reason why this one is so small, the reason why I got a kid style, is once again, it was a money problem. But I wanted this championship belt to really mean something, and wanted to give it an overhaul, a new look. And so I went with this because, well, the price was just right. If I could have got a bigger version, or I would have liked to have maybe even gotten the WCW version of the United States Championship belt, because it wasn't on television at the time, that would have been even better. But this one was in the price range, the price was right, and so that's what we went with. And this one was around. It got used and abused, and definitely seen its time. And but we definitely got our use and our money out of it. And so this was when the United States Championship really began to be a big part of the SMIW show. Next up, we have the SMIW version of the United States Championship belt. This was introduced for the first time in 2017, and just like I'll talk about a little more in depth with the World Championship belt, this one was not something that you'd see on TV, so this is what I went with. I wanted to get away from the small little belt that we had used, the one that you'd see on actual WWE programming all the time. I wanted something that wasn't as easily recognizable. So I came across this. I decided this is the version we were going to go with. And we used this for the 2017 season and for half of the 2018 season. So this particular championship belt, it only seen a few episodes, wasn't around very long, but this was really cool for us to be able to introduce and kind of give the United States Championship a new look. And it did the job, I liked it, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say about that. But this is the, I guess, SMIW version of the United States Championship belt. The final version of the United States Championship belt that we used, I currently do not own. That version was loaned to us by Chase Ward, and Chase was on the show as Aiden Lane and Brian Myers. And again, that was his belt, and he was generous enough to allow us to use the belt for the show. It only saw 2 episodes, unfortunately, but again, that belt is his, and so I currently do not own one, and it's unfortunate because being that it was on the show, I would really like to have one, and so hopefully I can track one down someday and be able to add it to the collection. Being that it was on the show, it'd be very important to me in order to have one, but I currently do not own one at this time. Finally, we go to the World Heavyweight Championship belts. And again, originally, at the very beginning in 2004, we had one of the foam and plastic, things that I created and made my own design. But very quickly, once we started filming the shows, I wanted something that looked a lot more real. Introduce the ECW World Heavyweight Championship replica belt. Once again, currently has the XWF on the top and on the side plates as well. This championship belt is in pretty rough shape these days, but we had used this throughout 2006, 2007, the better half, a really good portion of the 2010 XWF days, hence why it was rebranded. I bought this one in particular. Again, it was a price thing. It was always a price thing. Money was always an issue for us, especially when we were younger. This particular one, and one other one, which is a very ugly championship belt. You can't even find them anymore. Luckily, it was terrible. But they were both the exact same price, and I was kind of throwing the idea between this one and the other. This one ended up winning, and it was a good thing. Again, my justification was because ECW had already been gone for quite a while, and this is something that you would not see on television, so I figured, okay, that'd be alright if we can get this. And this particular belt has been used and abused, and it's in pretty rough shape, but it's something that's very, very important to me that I'll hold on to for the rest of my life, because how significant it was in the history of SMIW, how many people held this particular version of the championship belt, how many different characters, all that kind of thing. So this would be the third version of the World Heavyweight Championship belt that we would use, and it was a mainstay on the show for several years. And finally, we have the big gun, the big guy, the final version of the World Heavyweight Championship belt that we had used. This particular belt was introduced in late 2010 during the XWF era. And the thing is even though we were still using the small WWE United States Championship belt for that title, for the world title, I wanted something new. I wanted something different. We had used the same world title forever, it seemed, and this came up, and I loved this because there was no company logos to have to cover up. It was generic. You could use it for anything, and by that point, I was working a full-time job. I actually had some money, so I broke down and purchased this, and I was very glad I did. It's very heavy duty. I love this thing, and I really like the fact that we were able to bring this in. We brought it in a pretty cool angle where it looked like Dante was going to win the world title, and the decision was reversed. He would not give the championship back up, hence the introduction of this version of the world title. And we used it through the rest of 2010. And this is the final version that we would then bring back in 2017 and 2018 for the final version of SMIW, where several more characters were able to hold this championship belt, and was able to get some use. So, another piece of this collection that I will never let go, and I will hold on to for the rest of my life. It's very important to me, and I really enjoy it. But this is the final version of the World Heavyweight Championship belt that we used in SMIW. So there you have it. The championship belts throughout the history of SMIW. From the good, the bad, and the absolutely terrible. Again, some of these date back 13 years, and throughout all the different moves, moving from home to home and place to place, it's amazing to me that I still have most of these in my possession, and they are still in the exact same shape as they were 13 years ago. So very cool pieces of memorabilia, at least to me, and things that I'll hold on to for the rest of my life, being that they hold such good memories to me. But there you have it, the championship belts throughout the history of SMIW.